Hey, my name is Kasey Paris, and I am in Christina Lyons' 300 class, English 300, Grammar 300. I'm the online student, and I'm going to talk to you guys today about dashes and hyphens. Now, they look pretty similar. I mean, one is just kind of smaller than the other, you know? Like, yeah. So, let's talk about when you would use them, why you would use them, and what the difference is. So to begin, we have hyphens, which are more common than dashes and what you'll see more often. You would use a hyphen for connecting two or more words in order to make it into one concept. So for example, a run-on sentence, run on uses a hyphen because it's talking about a sentence that's too long. Other examples would be like well built, or even Batman like, something basically where you make your own adjective with more than one word and it's describing one concept. That's when you would use a hyphen. Another reason that you would use a hyphen would be if someone decides to hyphenate their last name after they get married. So for example, if I decided to marry Karen, it would be Kasey Paris Garyani with a hyphen in it, not a dash. And another place where you would see hyphens would be in the any number between 21 and 99 whenever you spell it out. So the number 23, if you type it out, 20 hyphen 3. All right. Okay. And hyphens also replace the word to. So for example, today in class we'll be reading pages 43 through 67. In between 43 and 67, you could put a dash there or a hyphen there instead of the word to. It's a hyphen, not a dash. Big difference. And the final way that you would use a hyphen would be syllable breaks. So for example, in a newspaper, whenever you have a column and it's supposed to just be one structured column, sometimes you'll have a word that runs out of space. So you would write it with a hyphen at the end, and the next syllable will be on the next line. So for example, the word lovely, you would break it up the syllable. Say you're running out of room, you would break it up the syllable, which would be love, hyphen, Lee would be on the next line. Those are all your reasons you would use hyphens. And stylistically, make sure when you type them that you don't have any spaces before or after the hyphen. So then we have our dashes, which is like, actually, no, it's not like a hyphen. It's different. Don't confuse the two. Dashes are longer. They're actually twice the size of a hyphen. So if you need a dash whenever you're typing, if you hit two hyphens, it turns into a dash, usually on most word processors, just so you know. Where you would use a dash, you would use it when you have interruptions in speech. This is more common whenever you're reading a book and it has dialogue in it. So for example, Sally said, I was just about to call, and then there's a dash. It says, when Jake called her. So that's where your speech is interrupted. You can have a dash there. Another place that you use a dash is if you're replacing the phrase it is or they are. You don't have to use that. You can use a hyphen instead. So for example, when Jose descended into the cold, dank basement, he came face to face with his one true fear. Dash. Spiders. See, you would use that to it's almost like it's more like drama, you know? Yeah. So that's where you would use a dash. And then notice in that sentence I used hyphens too. Face to face. That's one concept. So that's why we're using hyphens there to combine those words. Hyphens, no, dashes, they're kind of like colons where you would use, list the following and then there'd be a colon. The only difference is that there isn't a list. It's just one concept. So you would use a colon if you're listing a bunch of adjectives or something to describe, whatever is said. But you would use a dash, which is just one concept you're talking about. Okay, so for example, if Jose had more than one fear, like spiders and ladybugs, then you would use a colon and then say ladybugs, comma, spiders, comma, whatever. But since he's only afraid of spiders, that's why we have the dash in there. Okay. And the final use that you use for that you would use dashes for is to substitute them with parentheses. meaning that you wouldn't use the parentheses, you would use these instead. Okay, so the difference now between dashes and parentheses are that you would use dashes if the information is not very necessary, if it's just secondary information that you want your readers to know about. And so you would say, Kasey dash the teacher's pet dash went to recess. Now you see, like, no one needs to know that she's the teacher's pet in this sentence. It doesn't make any sense. So that's why we would use the dashes instead, and you would just separate that on each side. You could use them also if you have appositives that have commas in them. So if you're having a list, then you would want to use dashes, because then it would just be too many commas, and that's why you wouldn't want to use commas whenever you're using that kind of appositive. So for example, the dogs who were loud and obnoxious, but also cute, dash, we're going outside to play. Okay, you could put that in a comma or a parenthesis, but since there's the series, then you want to use the dashes instead, just so your readers don't get too confused with all the commas. All right. So there we go. Now we know about dashes and hyphens. As I recap, hyphens are to combine words to make it a concept, or just combine really anything in general. I mean, like names, as we talked about, concepts, the Batman like policeman, I don't know. And it could also replace the word to, like we said. So reading pages 43 through 67. And then dashes are more stylistic, and those are for appositives, okay? I guess a way that you could think about this is that you would use dashes with longer phrases, you know? Like, you can usually use them as appositives. And hyphens for just like little adjectives. So you see there's the little and the big. There's a way to think about it. And there you go. Now you know all about dashes and hyphens. And in the links below, there are going to be some resources for you. I got all of my information today off of Purdue Owl, which I always recommend for anybody who needs to look up anything that has to do with grammar. And then I'm also going to put a quiz down there so that you guys can go and check it out and say how much you know about dashes and hyphens. Now have a lovely day.